Hello, everyone. My name is Amy Castro, and I'm a PhD candidate in nursing at McGill University, supported by my iRespite services team. Today, I'm sharing the preliminary results of my doctoral research for developing an app to coordinate nurse-provided respite care services for families coping with palliative stage cancer. However, before I go into the details of this research, I'd like to start by having you imagine a situation to better illustrate the motivation behind this project. Imagine that you're an only child and your mother lives alone in a city several hours away. She has a terminal cancer diagnosis and is receiving palliative care services, and she's determined to die at home. You want to be with her during these final weeks, so you decide to go live with her and work from home while caring for her. But you don't realize how exhausting 24/7 care can be when caring for someone who you love is dying. You don't realize how much work, hygiene, and comfort care takes for someone who could barely move. And you don't realize that your mother may have respiratory distress or lose consciousness, and you won't know what to do. Yet, you'll learn that there is no one else learning with you, and you know you can't keep your promise for your mother to die at home much longer without help. One evening, after the millionth scare of the day where you wonder, is this it? You break down crying. You need a break. You need help right now. But who can you call? Who can you trust to provide this complex, last-minute care? The ultimate aim of my research is to help the thousands of families who experience similar situations every year. The purpose of this research is to develop an mHealth app prototype for coordinating flexible and trusted in-home respite care services provided by nurses to families coping with palliative stage cancer in Quebec. Cancer caregiving is one of the top 3 most labor-intensive forms of family caregiving, and symptoms often result in patients relying heavily on the skilled assistance of their family caregivers to continue living in the community. Families want in-home respite care, but they need flexible and trusted respite care providers who can provide the necessary care supports for several hours while patients and caregivers can take breaks from each other and their family dyadic roles. However, too often, respite care services are fragmented and don't have the resources to provide the flexible scheduling or clinical skill capabilities that palliative care families need. According to the literature, for families with palliative cancer care needs, nurses may be the preferred providers of respite care services. The limited research available suggests that when nurse-provided respite care services are accessible, these services are often preferred by families coping with palliative stage cancer. We think that the ubiquity and power of smartphone technologies could be used to collaboratively design an app to better coordinate nurse-provided respite care services for such families, allowing them to remain at home. To develop such an app with families and healthcare providers, we're recruiting participants from the following sites: the McGill University Health Centre, the Jewish General Hospital, the Palliative Home Care Society of Greater Montreal Agency, and the virtual professional networks of our research team. The recruited sample is being composed of adults with palliative stage cancer, their family caregivers, nurses, and key informants. This past winter, we recruited 5 key informants directly by email to form a transdisciplinary expert council to provide continued guidance on the study. We're also asking collaborators at our recruitment sites to distribute the bilingual study brief via their internal listservs, newsletters, and social media accounts. The study is taking place over 3 research phases: Phase 1, brainstorming; Phase 2, wireframing of several potential app designs; and Phase 3, usability testing. 30 participants will be needed for the Phase 1 individual interviews, and these same participants will be invited to participate in Phase 2 focus groups and interviews and Phase 3 usability testing. We're currently in Phase 1, and we've interviewed 6 nurses so far. Data collection is occurring entirely remotely using Teams, and all sessions are lasting between 60 to 90 minutes. And to design this prototype, we're conducting a user-centered design study guided by an adapted version of the Information Systems Research Framework. This methodology focuses on formative design over 3 iterative research cycles in blue, with 3 specific research phases in red. And further details have been published recently in JNIR. The next few slides will present our preliminary iterative data analyses according to the 3 cycles of our research framework: the rigor, relevance, and design cycles. For the rigor cycle, I read key theoretical and best practices literature relating to the following concepts. Key respite and palliative care literature included the Arch National Respite Care Guidelines and the Pan-Canadian Gold Standards for Home Palliative Care. mHealth literature sources included the Mobile App Rating Scale and the NLIGHT instrument. I used these key sources of literature to develop a preliminary deductive codebook for analyzing interview transcript data from the Relevance cycle. Data collected from our expert council of 5 key informants and our sample of nurses, caregivers, and patients will be analyzed deductively using this codebook, as well as inductively, to identify respite care service and contextual implementation needs, and to create a list of potential app features that could address these needs. This list of app features will be iteratively developed as part of the design cycle. Our first expert council meeting was conducted in February as part of the Relevance cycle. We recruited 5 different key stakeholders, including a social worker in palliative care, a computer scientist, and a palliative care physician. All key informants have expressed strong support for the proposed project, especially in regards to 1, the need for flexible and trusted in-home respite care for palliative care families, and 2, the value of our user-centered design methodology. We've also recruited 6 nurse participants so far. 3 are hospital-based oncology nurses, and 3 are palliative home care nurses, all based in Montreal, Canada, and the surrounding suburbs. In these interviews, we've identified several recurring themes. For respite care needs, there's a strong consensus among these 6 nurses that families need better respite care coordination support. This consensus helps to validate the need for our project. For implementation concerns, nurses highlighted the need for early and appropriate marketing of the app-based service to families and nurse providers. Nurses emphasized that common respite care challenges include that families are unaware of available services until their needs are too great, and then they need time to overcome feelings of guilt. In terms of financing, nurses highlighted that there will need to be public and private partnerships, and that the app will need cost transparency, sharing prices and fees upfront before app sign up. An unexpected theme for respite care provider hiring was that, unlike in the literature, nurse participants don't think a nurse needs to be the respite care provider for palliative oncology respite care. Home care aides or personal support workers can offer monitoring and surveillance. What's key is transparency about provider skill sets and ensuring that all providers have appropriate palliative care training. Relatedly, the app must manage families' expectations about what the services can actually provide to avoid family disappointment. Another unexpected theme for the app was that several of the nurses thought the app would actually be to provide an easy-to-navigate database of existing services, rather than just on-demand respite care that families could then connect with themselves. So based on these data, some of the potential app features we've identified include having separate sign-in dashboards for family caregivers, self-employed respite care contractors, such as nurses or personal support workers, and organizations, such as home care agencies. Sign-up features should include the region of service, languages spoken, specific care support needs, and credentials of the respite care providers. Coordination features could include schedules showing provider availabilities, an easy-to-navigate list of other services available for respite care, and notifications sent out by hospices and day centers to families and nurses when a space becomes available. In terms of managing expectations up front with families, before even signing up, the app should list out the fees and costs for different services that can be contacted through the app. Families should also have to share whether they're prioritizing urgent respite care support versus less immediate respite care with more continuity of care. And for app security and trust, nurses suggested that fingerprint sign-in was easier than remembering passwords, and a few nurses recommended having an anonymous respite care provider rating option. Next steps for our iRespite app include finishing phase 1 brainstorming. In the fall, we'll begin phase 2 wireframing, and in the winter, we'll conduct usability testings on the wireframes. Our preliminary findings align with other research on the need for improved integrated coordination of community respite care in the palliative context. Leveraging the ubiquity and power of mHealth modalities, our transdisciplinary team is collaboratively working with nurse clinicians, informatics specialists, palliative care organizations, and families to construct a new app-based respite care platform together. Eventually, practicing nurses, other providers, and home care agencies could coordinate their services through an app based on this co-developed prototype. Such an app could facilitate death at home, which is where most patients wish to be. So I'm grateful for the ongoing support of my fantastic research team, and I'm also grateful for the generosity of these funding organizations, especially to ARC for their 2020 studentship. Thank you very much for having me. If you have any questions or comments, please reach out. We're still recruiting caregiver and nurse patient participants in Quebec as well. Thank you.